Hello, everyone. Perry here, back in Park City with another exclusive Collider interview at the Supper Suite. Big thanks to our sponsors, Kia, for making all this happen so we could talk about movies like Tesla. I'm sitting here with the team behind the movie. Hello and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
So, is this anybody's first Sundance?
I haven't been here for a number of years. Is there a certain time when it sort of runs out, statute runs out, and then you start again?
I don't think the rules go that way.
No? Okay. No, certainly not my first.
I was wondering because we had a pretty extensive conversation about like a million movies that you had here.
No, I gain 20 pounds and then I come back every year. So I'm kind of a different person. I'm fatter every time.
Yeah, that's not the case.
Kyle and I were here 20 years ago, exactly, with a little movie called Hamlet.
Exactly right.
He was the bad guy.
I was bad guy, Claudius.
But he was excellent.
And Ethan was Hamlet.
Yeah.
So we brought the band back together again.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so funny.
So to speak, yeah.
Huh. What has it been like returning thus far? I know you guys haven't had your premiere yet, but why was it important to you after having that experience to debut this movie at Sundance?
Sundance is the best, right? We agree? Well, the timing worked out. I feel very lucky to be here. It's a great platform to launch a film.
Can you tell our audience a little bit about the film? I'm sure they can put two and two together based on the title, but what is it about your story that makes it different from any other interpretation we've seen thus far?
It's remarkably not obvious what the movie is or how it does what it does. The Tesla story is channeled through Anne Morgan, the daughter of J.P. Morgan, played by Eve Hewson. And so that puts a unique spin on that ball. And there haven't really been Tesla movies. Tesla's appeared as a guest figure in other films, but this is truly his story, but it's a group portrait. Kyle plays Edison, Jim plays George Westinghouse. They were titans, but they were also human beings, and so we try to give it an intimate quality, even though it's an epic.
And I was reading that the script had been optioned in, I think it was the early 80s. So can you tell us a little bit about what the biggest differences are between that initial version and what we're going to see on screen?
Eve's character wasn't in that version, so I had to wait to make it better to get Eve in it.
I'm not sure you're even
Still
born.
getting used to
you weren't
this
even born at
microphone.
that time.
I had to wait for Eve to be born.
Yes, no.
Be born and grow up, and now we can do it.
Can you guys tell us a little bit about your role in the movie and why it was so instrumental to tell the story?
Give it a whirl.
Okay. Well, so there's sort of two different worlds that you see in the film. There's one Anne that is sort of in the contemporary world who is telling you the story of Tesla's life. And then you sort of step into the story. And I also play Anne in that, who is a slightly different version of the character, but kind of the same.
Speaking from the future.
Yeah, so it's an interesting take on
storytelling
storytelling in general.
The crucial factor that made the script better, I think, from the decades-old version, is that by being narrated by a woman who wanted to be close to Tesla, it gave access to a side of him, to his inner life, or what he was both resisting and clouding in his own life. Because one reason I think there hasn't been a movie about Tesla is he had no known romantic relationships. But I didn't want to infringe on that reality, but he had a lot of women around him. And Anne was a significant one because her father became a very powerful influence in Tesla's life. He was probably the most influential money man in the world at that time. So that fascinated me, and it took me a while to catch up with that situation.
So I haven't seen the movie yet, and in the press notes it was described as like you being a little bit of a narrator. Is that kind of voiceover narration?
It's a voiceover and to camera.
Okay.
So it's a mix of both, right?
So it's a little eccentric, but we've seen what is it? The John Hughes movie.
Yes.
Many of them. I can't remember them. Ferris, we've seen that. It's not extraordinary to have people talk to the camera, but Eve's very good at that. So we have a bit of that in the movie.
That was my one reservation that I said to Michael when we had our meeting. I was like, I don't want to do it. I can't talk to camera. But you made me do it.
Through.
Was there a key to any of the notes he gave you that made you feel most comfortable with it?
I just had to learn my lines, really. I think that was...
She achieved it beautifully.
Yeah. Just learn your lines.
I love the jump between modern implements that appear in the film and then the traipsing back into the real time period. So there's definitely
Drunk History was a big influence. Seriously.
Truly.
Yeah.
An intimidation factor there, and you use the word titans to describe your roles. Is that nerve-wracking, jumping into portraying such formidable forces like that?
Well, I
Challenging.
think it's interesting, because we, similar to the time period of this movie, we live in a time period of titans, right? And I know that for George Westinghouse, him versus Morgan or even Edison, it's there's a lot of different shades of good or bad, and it'll be interesting. I haven't seen the film, but to see what the takeaway, obviously every audience member will have their own takeaway, but to see how this George Westinghouse is interpreted. Did he take advantage of Tesla? Was he doing the best case scenario? I'm dying to find out.
It's a little of both. We can give it away.
Haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Well, you haven't seen it?
Oh.
No.
Do you guys
You read the
like
script,
sitting
though.
and watching a movie through, especially when you're parts of a whole? Is there anything that you didn't get to experience working on this on set that you're really excited to see on screen?
I always enjoy watching the other performers work because my section was quite short, 4 or 5 days, I think, or 6 days maybe. So I want to see what was going on when I wasn't there. And I'm at the point in my career now where I don't really care what I look like anymore on films, like whatever. But I'm very interested to watch the other performers.
Can you guys tell me a little bit about working with Ethan too? I mean, he's the title character here. He's phenomenal. You've both worked with him before. So is there anything about his approach to the role that surprised you?
We pretty much agree that he's awful, right? I mean, amongst all
We
of us,
hate him.
right?
He's the worst. That's why he's not here.
He's not here. We could talk about behind his back.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's on the jury. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. I
We
did.
can
Hopefully
explain
that
that
means
to our
he's voting for
gentlemen.
us, then.
Well,
Yeah.
we're not in competition. You got that. But I think if he were here, he would tell us what it's like working with him. I was here 20 years ago with Ethan and Kyle, and he's been a great friend and enabler, I could say. The movie wouldn't exist without him. So I can only heap praise on him, and it's sincere, because he's got his own visionary, passionate, generous spirit that I think is on display in the movie in a very definite way.
I think you hit all that with generous of spirit. It's also so spontaneous. So in the movie, you never quite know, and he's up for anything. He's just really wonderful to work with.
Are you the kind of director who prefers that the cast stick to the script, or are you a little more fluid on set? 'Cause I know this is a pretty significant project to pull off in New York City on a limited budget.
Well, when I'm doing Shakespeare, I like to stick to the script. But when it's my script, I think anything goes. Yeah.
So what was it like on set collaborating? How much can you guys bring out in the moment? I mean, I keep hearing, people find the film as the process progresses. Did you find that happening at all while you were shooting?
Yeah, I think also because we were in India and we were shooting for like 30 days and we didn't have that much money, there were some challenges. I remember coming to set some days and we had lost our location, and we all together sort of had to come up with a solution. So I think in a way it was sort of like we all pitched in.
Every day was an emergency of one kind or another.
Yeah, it was, which I think made the film better. I mean, it's more interesting this way.
I think that's what's so fun about indie films is that everyone's there for the right reason. It's not, there's not some, like if you're looking for an ego trip, you shouldn't be doing an indie anyway. You know what I mean? And but like they're also, it's obviously Michael's project and Ethan's the lead, but you can be a good soldier and show up with ideas, and sometimes those ideas work, and sometimes so there's a collaborative spirit that I think is so fun. And this is my second film with Michael. We did The Experimenter, and it's this ongoing, movable process that is amazing.
We got to keep that trend going. Eve, you got to do another movie with Michael now.
Cool.
And then you got to come back here and we'll talk about all of them.
Okay, great. See you next year.
Based on what you just said, this is a question I like bringing up often, but especially on an independent film. If you had to name an unsung hero of this production, someone on the crew that we need to know more about and the work that they brought to the film, who would you pick and why?
Well, he's not unsung, but I just point to Michael, and
Yeah.
probably because of what we were speaking about before, the collaborative process that we have to go through, and Michael is nothing but that. I mean, it's always about finding it, and there's a discussion and conversations, and he's so smart that he'll answer anything, and he just gives you all the energy that you need, really, as a character.
I assume you would all
Very
echo that.
sweet.
It's true.
I won't. I'd like to pick someone else to name, but
Who?
well, the obvious choice is the guy who is both our favorite kind of grizzly bear, Sean Williams, the DP, who is a very unique character, who manages to both be self-destructive and invaluable on almost every day. He's part of the emergency and he's part of the rescue operation, and it's funny to be public about this, but I doubt he'll ever see this. But he's incredibly prolific. He's almost willfully sticking to independent films, to low budget films, European films. But he's made over 50 or maybe 70 movies, and he's 41, I think. So I felt it's my second feature with him, my fourth film. Everything is not easy, but the results are magnificent. So I would say, let's vote for Sean. Yay, Sean. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Before I let you guys go, we do have a couple of rapid-fire supercut questions. Actually, before I even do that, Kyla, I do want to bring up Twin Peaks, because we have a ton of Twin Peaks fans that watch our stuff, and we worked on a Twin Peaks game, so it's just a very exciting thing to bring up a VR game. What was it like returning to that world, and how do you feel about it now after the fact?
It was everything you can imagine. Just really the opportunity to work with David Lynch again was so special. And to revisit the character and characters that I did, one of the highlights of my career.
Thank you guys so much for your time
Thank
today.
you.
Tesla, keep an eye out for it. Another big thanks to Kia for having us here in the Supper Suite. Thanks for making these interviews happen. Like and share this one before you leave, and stay tuned, because we've got more coming your way from Park City real soon.